Food addiction, guilt, and negative energies. Well, there is actually, could talk about, it's an interesting question. Everyone has guilt by not being true to the spirit. Uh, a lot of it's unconscious, you're not aware of it, and there's levels of guilt. Um, Now, indulging in the seven deadly sins, like food addiction, gluttony, is a major, will cause major guilt because it's anti-life. As you evolve into the more spiritual fields, up the levels of consciousness, um, uh, you realize that what was tying you down partly to the lower fields was the unconscious guilt of not being who you're meant to be in this world, which is your infinite nature. And actually, you see on the grosser levels, this is seen quite well in 12-step groups who do inventory. You see, if you spend your whole life eating food till you're obese and killing yourself and distressing everyone and being a waste of space for your whole life, of course you're going to have guilt. It's a waste of life. God gave you the gift of life. And the highest expression of life, of course, is the avatars and the saints. Just to be a normal person and not harm anyone is pretty good. To be an addict, being selfish and self-absorbed, or to wallow in addictions and waste your life indulging self-indulgence. Of course, that brings up huge amounts of guilt, unconscious guilt, because you don't feel the guilt because you're eating too many donuts to feel the guilt. But if you stopped eating the donuts, you'd feel the guilt, you see, because you go, well, I just wasted my whole life and made everyone a misery just eating donuts. So as you evolve spiritually, you realize that there's layers of guilt. Mm. You realize that to grossly waste your life in resentments, in gluttony or whatever, would create a lot of unconscious guilt and a lot of self-destructive behavior because it's anti-life. But even as you go up the higher levels, you realize that you had some guilt. If I could be a saint, and that's my potential to be a saint, and not to actualize that, then I'd have guilt. Like you. Uh, I realized as I guess I call it a near-death spiritual experience with the kidney failure in the Royal Free Hospital. You do get a moral inventory of your life. It runs before your eyes. Like, this is what you did with your life. It's like a bit like God saying, I gave you these years, and what do you do with them? Have a little rerun. Did you get full marks, or were you, it was, I mean, it was awful. I was a mad addict for 30 years, so it was pretty horrific. Now, if it's like, well, you've helped hundreds of people recover from addiction, you are a light, an illumination, a channel of non-dual love, then that's pretty like you fulfilled your spiritual potential. So you probably have very little guilt. You'd say, well, you maximized your spiritual potential. So food addiction is, a gross food addiction, or even just spending your life just wallowing in. I had, it was hilarious. I had one of the people I was mentoring in the food addiction fellowships. It's hilarious. Every addiction. I've mentored people in several different addictions, but it was hilarious. I walked out with this person. It was a place in central London, and he was a connoisseur of all the restaurants. And he was saying, well, the burgers at this place, it's quite highly, it's got awards. And he was going through all the different types of foods and all the amazing tastes, and how he was a connoisseur of all the different. It was like, you know, I mean, it's interesting. I'm a slightly different type of food addict, not a connoisseur food addict. More as just a binge on any food, but cheap and cheerful. But he was more of a connoisseur. But yeah, so it's a bit, it's like, okay, you sort of leave the body, and it's like, what did you do with your life? Well, I'm an expert in every single restaurant in London and what the food. I mean, it's okay. I guess it's useful. Maybe. I mean, it was interesting to listen to him, but I mean, I wouldn't spend my whole life doing it. So, okay, food addiction. Oh, the guilt. Yes, the temptations. Well, that's true. I usually don't talk about this, but yes, it is true. The negative energies are able to sense your weaknesses, your karmic weaknesses, and they go for them. Um, and I will do videos, especially if you're an advanced student or a spiritual teacher. You have to be extremely careful because, yeah, I'll talk about that in another video. But yeah, usually if you're just an average spiritual student, you don't need to worry about the negative energies so much. They won't bother you that much. So anyway, when you become very advanced or a spiritual teacher, that you need to be more concerned about the negative energies. But they do see where your weaknesses are and go for them. And they will, especially if you're giving up prediction, actually, funny enough, as I've shared in another video, I saw that with people I was helping. They would be set up with circumstances, um, men who are trying to escape destructive relationships. As soon as they tried to let go, these women knew where they were going to be and how to go for the jugular to pull them back into addiction. And it was like, and I could see there was something more, what should I say? There were more of a sinister orchestration at play to pull them off. Now that they'd committed to the spiritual alignment, there were forces at play to make sure they fell back. And I could sort of see that. It was very, very clear. Yeah, that's true. So if you're getting off addiction, stick close to your sponsor and the fellowship, because coming off addiction, it can be a life and death thing. And, you go from being like a total addict to being a saint in a few days. So yeah, certain energies and fields don't like it really if you try and do that. Okay. Uh, okay. And yeah, so if you are an advanced student, negative, well, okay. So if you're an advanced student and you're trying to get to enlightenment and you're giving it 100%, um, then yes, you will have to worry about the negative energies because they will take note of you and they will try to derail. Anyone who wants to make very advanced spiritual progress needs to be on extreme guard. So you are vigilant that you are now advanced students and spiritual teachers need to be extremely vigilant at all times. Um, so what does that mean? Like, let's say the energies know that your temptation is food. They will orchestrate circumstances to tempt you with food. And yeah, that did happen in the early days of my food recovery. So they do it through very advanced mechanisms, which I won't, may not go, but you'll be set up with situations to tempt you with food and to especially avoid all negative people, places, and situations. If, for example, some friends who are maybe a little bit below integrity suddenly invite you out, say no. If you suddenly feel like going to locations, you think, oh, well, why don't I go to that location? But that location, you're not clear, has lots of restaurants and food joints that you normally like to go. You're not sure why you want to walk around there. Well, don't go. Be a bit more conscious. Um, if you're in the supermarket, um, stay away from the aisles where you know the tempting foods are. Um, and avoid all negative people because, they may be used to tempt you, you know. Also avoid negative people in general because they may aggressively attack you so you feel disconnected and then suddenly go for food, whatever your addiction is. So you protect yourself. Uh, I like there what Hawkins said, seek only holy company. But if you're an advanced student or a teacher, you should do that aggressively at all times. Never, as Hawkins said, these energies have had thousands and thousands and thousands of years of experience at temptation and evolving their arts. So never think, even if you're an advanced spiritual teacher or an advanced student, never be cocky and arrogant. Always be 100% aligned with divinity. And don't be arrogant and be on your guard and increase your just increase your alignment with the spiritual fields at all time. I will do some more videos on this, but I actually run out of time actually, I think today. I did want to do, remind me next week if I get time. I want to do one on a video on uh, entrainment and entrainment and negative entrainment to silent fields. Yeah, I wanted to do that, but I haven't got time. So I'll stop there. Press stop.